So right now we are registering one event and one listener against it. What if I want to add more functionality, and let's say for an instance I want to send a request to my inventory or store that this item has been sold and the stock should be updated. What can I do? Maybe I can register a new event and dispatch it from the checkout controller. That could be an option. But you know that we can register as many listeners as we want against an event. For an instance, right now we are registering this listener send email upon sales created. We can also register another listener by using a comma separated and then the class of that register as well. That listener as well. So let's say for an example, I want to create I create another PHP artisan make listener, and let's name it as update inventory upon sale created. And we also need to make sure that we attach the event to this listener as well. So if we do not attach the listener, then we have to do all these things manually. By manually, what I mean is that there is an option that we can do this in Laravel automatically, but if you do not flag the event to which this listener should be attached to, then we might not be able to automatically configure these events and listeners. So let me just delete this listener and make sure that we attach the event to it. So let me delete it, and now we need to attach the event, and the event is basically sale created, like so. Now so we should see the listener here. Now it's here. Now let's say when the sale is created, so actually this should be the sale model here, not the event itself, which we basically had in our this listener sale created. So okay, sorry, we had misspelled our name, so it should be like sale created. This should be the event. Now I can also log in another functionality. Let's say for an instance info stock updated, just for an instance. And now all I can do is basically I can register the listener inside the event. So let's say update inventory upon sales created, and then class, then we have Laravel log file here. Let's remove it, and now let's run this one more time. So now if I just fake fill the information, continue to check out. Now if I go to here, now you can see the stock is updated, and we also got the object here as well. Now we can also do these events, register these events inside our models. If there is any sort of activity that is related to models or that is related to the database updation. For an instance, right now we are sending an email, but we are also updating the inventory as well. So for an instance, let's say we have this one is basically just sending an email, whereas this is interacting with models. This listener should be interacting with models because this should update the inventory. And then in order to do so, what we can need is basically we need to create a protected dispatches events. Now this accepts an array of key and values. Now the key is basically created, and upon created I can use the sale created class. Now in this way we can manually handle the models events inside our model. So as we see that this should update the inventory when the sale is created, so we can do this manually by defining this here as well. So this is a one way of doing automatic this event and listener attaching in the Laravel. Now there is another way, and that is you can see there is a method which is called should discover events. Now if we set this to true, what this will do is basically we then do not need to specify the events and listeners manually here. Laravel will automatically check all those events and all those their related listeners when we set this to true. So on every HTTP request, Laravel will check all the files and then will register those events and listeners automatically. So if I do so and if I reload the page, now we have an object and info here, so let's remove it. Now if I just fill the form one more time, now you can see again is like we are now triggering twice, because the reason is that we also have used this inside our model as well. So if I now comment this out, but still we are now getting the first name and the stock updated. So let me just show you one more time. If I now check fill the form again one more time, and if I go to Laravel log, you can see the stock has been updated and the object we are getting as well. Now there is a one little problem. Although this technique is really good, because we have to take advantage of all the techniques and methods provided by the Laravel, but you know, on every HTTP request, Laravel will check all those events and listeners files and register them into the Laravel application, and that's somehow kind of maybe not good, or it's take time to include all those files and read all those files. So in production mode, you should make sure that you cache the events. So all you need to do is basically you can apply PHP artisan events cache. By doing so, this should be event cache. By doing so, Laravel will cache all the events in a separate file, and then whenever the new HTTP request will come, so Laravel will check only that cached file, and that will be a much more faster response than the usual if you do not apply the cache. Now there is one last thing before we conclude this lesson. Let's say for an instance, this listener has to run some kind of query. Obviously this is about to run a query because we have to update the stock here, and let's say this might take a little time, or this has to do something with the complex queries. So all you need to do is basically you cannot run this on runtime because this might actually slow your application. So you should send this listener into the queue. So all you need to do is basically you need to implement should queue method here. So this should queue interface, when you implement that, make sure that you have also ran the migration of queue table, so that the queue will automatically be saved in the queues table or in the jobs table. So when you do that, then you also need to make sure that you run the PHP artisan queue work command as well. Alright, so we have learned 4 different things in this lesson, and this wraps up our events and listeners. Next we are going to see how we can handle the broadcasting events in Laravel. That's about it, and I will see you in the next one.